tonight's video, we are going to be continuing our comparison series in fantasy football with later first round wide receivers. We had a previous video covering JSN, Buka, and Jamar Chase in the early first round. And in this video, I have three more wide receivers that I think should be consensus first round players. And we are going to be comparing them to each other and seeing, in my opinion, looking at the numbers that I pulled and thought were the most valuable, which receivers you should draft in the first round with your ever so valuable first round pick. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the slideshow here. Tonight we will be discussing Amon-Ra St. Brown up against CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. I think these are the late first wide receiver options. I think any other receiver besides these three and the first three should be second round picks. So in this order, we're starting with Amon-Ra. He is going into his age 26 season, so no worries there. He finished 11th in points per game last season among all flex players in FPBR. He had a 31% target share, which is elite. Anything above 30% I marked as elite. I think that is definitely notable. And he had a 2.47 yards per route run, which is very good. Almost in the elite tier. I think I set the elite tier at 2.5 plus, so he's right at the edge. Again, these are what I think the most important metrics are for wide receivers to repeat their performance in fantasy. And for all of these receivers, they are on the same team, so it shouldn't be too drastic of changes here. As for the supporting cast, we have Jared Goff throwing him the ball. Jared Goff is perfectly capable of producing high-end season for Amon-Ra. They've been doing it for a couple years now, so no worries there. Pretty simple case. There's really not much to say with Amon-Ra. I feel like he's pretty safe, considering the lack of change in the Detroit offense. You lose Monty, that doesn't really affect the passing game too much. I believe the offensive line is getting worse, but we'll see what happens. I don't think it's a huge deal. Well, obviously the offensive line in football is a very big deal, but in this specific case, I've heard people say that the offensive line is getting worse. I haven't seen it with my own eyes. So it's not like, the Texans where it stands out, right? So I'm not too concerned about the offensive line. Obviously, you lost Ben Johnson, but last year without Ben Johnson, he was a near top 10 flex player. So I think first round is perfectly fair for Amon-Ra. CeeDee Lamb is next. Now what's interesting is the next two players are in very different situations than St. Brown. You could see CeeDee Lamb going into his age 27 season. Again, no worries there. But he only finished 39th among flex players, so among all running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends in FPBR, he was the 39th in points per game. So, how is it possible that he's being drafted in the first round. Especially when you look at the underlying number, but the numbers here. You have a 23% target share, which is good, but not crazy. And then 2.37 yards per route run, which again is good too. So not terrible numbers, but nothing crazy. Definitely nothing comparing to, the JSN, Puka, and Jamar Chases of the world. And even with Amon-Ra, the yards per route run is close, but this target share is a lot lower, and obviously the points per game finish is a lot lower. So the story with Lamb is that he had a high ankle sprain last year. I believe historically high ankle sprain is one of the more lingering injuries for explosive NFL players. It really inhibits their production. So having the efficiency that he does with the over 2 yards per route run is an encouraging sign. However, the elephant in the room that neither St. Brown or Jefferson have is George Pickens. Obviously, in Detroit you have Jameson Williams, but he is not George Pickens, at least not last year when George Pickens really broke out. I followed this team closely because I had CeeDee Lamb in like 2 leagues last year, which didn't work out well for me. But even after CeeDee Lamb came back from the injury, he just wasn't. Like a few years ago, CeeDee Lamb was the entire passing offense pretty much. When Dak dropped back to pass, you felt like it was going to CeeDee Lamb, but it really felt like it would go to Pickens more. As for the quarterback, Dak again, Dak has supported CeeDee Lamb through great seasons, so nothing to worry about there as far as QB play. But I just think the receiver competition might be a little too much for this price point. And we saw that play out last year, but he was also at the ankle sprain that he was coming off, so maybe you want to give him a second chance. It seems like the industry is giving him a second chance. I got burned by it, I'm not so sure. And then the final receiver for today, Justin Jefferson. Let me know if the colors are too bright next time I do a Minnesota player. If the yellow is too much for an ASMR video, let me know. But he is the same age as CeeDee Lamb. He's going into his age 27 season. And he is an even more extreme case than CeeDee Lamb. He finished 77th in points per game last season. He barely broke 1,000-yard season last year. So, again, how could he be drafted in the first round? Well, he did have a 30% target share, which is elite. He only had 1.88 yards per route run, which for Justin Jefferson seems insane. Like, that is very low for him. And you can see at the bottom, how did this happen? The answer is 9. If you don't know what I mean by 9. I assume if you're watching a fantasy football video in mid-July, you know who 9 is. But, of course, I'm talking about the Vikings quarterback from last year, J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, national champion. He did not play very well for the Vikings, and even with a 30% target share, they weren't good targets, obviously, considering how low his efficiency metrics were for Jefferson, who we know is, I still think he's the best wide receiver. I know people argue Chase, people argue Puka. If I if my team could have any wide receiver in the league, contract not involved, I would want Justin Jefferson. I do think he's the best. Just, the best separator. He just is open and he has insane hands. So I think he's the best receiver in the league. I think he hasn't had the opportunity to show it for a couple of seasons, and people have kind of forgotten. But does that mean that people will be reminded this year? It's tough to say because we have a new quarterback in Minnesota, and it is Kyler Murray. And like I said, it's hard to say. It is Kyler's first year in Minnesota. So do you want to gamble your first round pick on an offense you haven't seen before when you know that Dallas will have a good passing offense and Detroit will have a good passing offense as well? Kyler, we don't know. We are just placing the bet on the talent of Justin Jefferson and the fact that we've seen Kyler play decent ball, and we have not seen that from McCarthy. So, yeah, are you spending a late first round pick on, if you're the 77th in FPPR, we'll just say definitely outside the wide receiver 20 finish. Are you willing to take that risk? I mean, honestly, in this video, we're just assuming you're taking that risk. We're just doing the order of these three. You could make the argument he shouldn't even be in the first round, but I think once you see, as we continue down the list, the drop-off in wide receiver is pretty stark this year. I feel like it's kind of reversed. I feel like there's a lot of quality running backs in the second round. And I feel like wide receiver dries up faster than, elite wide receiver dries up faster than elite running back this year, in my opinion. Unless you're saying that only Bijan and Gibbs are elite and that's it, then okay. But there's a lot of quality starting running backs. It feels like more than usual. And for receivers, this is basically it. Once you get past these six, the next one is Drake London, I think, and we'll talk about him when we get to him, but, Tua or Michael Penix, it's like a similar situation. It's not a great place to be. So, with that being said, I do think Justin Jefferson is worth a first-round pick. Even with these metrics, I think the risk is worth it, just because I do still think he's the best receiver in the league, and I think a competent quarterback can show that. So, how do I rank these three? Just looking at the numbers side by side here. Age, not a factor for any of these players. The finish, Amon-Ra had the highest finish by a mile last year. So, he's probably the safest pick. He had the highest target share as well, and the highest yards per route run. As for the best quarterback, I would say Dak is the best quarterback, but it's not like by miles, especially for fantasy. So I think you just have to take St. Brown. I mean, obviously you're expecting positive regression from Lamb and from Jefferson, but Lamb still has Pickens and Jefferson still has an unsure quarterback room. So if between these three players, I think you have to take Amon-Ra first. He's leading every stat, and he has the same offense. So I just think keep it simple. There's no need to outthink it here. You just take Amon-Ra and you feel safe about it. Maybe it's kind of the story of Amon-Ra's entire career. Maybe you don't feel or not entire career, but since he's broken out, maybe you don't feel super excited about the absolute ceiling case for Amon-Ra, but you know that the floor is so high with him. Lamb. I'm worried about Lamb. I'm also worried about Jefferson. This is tough. I'm thinking about it right now. I'm picturing myself on the clock. Let's say all the running backs are gone. I'm picking between CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. I'm picking 12th or 11th. I mean, I don't know. Just for example. So it's like I have to take them because the value's too good. One of these two players. Who would I want? I really do feel like Lamb is overpriced. Obviously, he burned me last year, which you could say is making me biased, but he also won me leagues, whatever year that was that he was winning leagues. 2 or 3 years ago, when they played the Lions in week 17 and he caught a bomb, whatever year that was. So that's why I got stuck in him last year, taking him in 2 different leagues. So it's like I'm biased both ways because, he's won me as much as he's lost me at this point. Obviously, he has way higher efficiency than Jefferson, but a lower target share because Pickens is there. And I would expect that to be similar, even if Kyler's an upgrade from McCarthy. I think it's safe to assume that the Cowboys' passing offense will be more efficient, but it'll have a lower target share. So, what do you do? I think Amon-Ra first, and I actually think I would rank Jefferson ahead of Lamb. I just don't see the absolute ceiling case for Lamb with Pickens there. I was looking at the spreadsheet when I was making this slideshow, and Pickens had a higher target share than Lamb. And it's just, obviously, again, Lamb was injured, so he should see a bump up. But I think both of them, I think between Lamb and Pickens, I'd rather take Pickens because I think they're close enough that I would rather have the cheaper one. That's kind of how I feel about the Cowboys receivers right now. Whereas, while being super invested in Kyler to support your first pick is scary, don't get me wrong. He's still at a 30% target share. He is the passing offense. If the Vikings offense is better, they're going to score more touchdowns, and he'll have a higher yards per route run, so that 77th will skyrocket up, and I think he has the potential to be a league winner, whereas I don't even know if Lamb, aside from Pickens getting hurt, I don't know if I see that super upside case for Lamb, whereas with Jefferson, it's a pretty simple upside case. It's just Kyler Murray is unlocked by Kevin O'Connell, which, yeah, maybe isn't that likely, but it's simple, you know what I mean? Just one thing has to happen. Whereas with Lamb, it's like Pickens needs to go down or fall off, which I guess is also simple in the fact that you're just preying on the downfall of one person versus preying on the upside of another person. But, I mean, Pickens was so good last year, and he's on the franchise tag, so he needs to play well. So it just feels like Pickens is gonna need to play well in a contract year, basically de facto contract year. So that's gonna hurt Lamb. Whereas Jefferson, if he's in a good offense, he will be really good. So yeah, wasn't sure where I was going at the start of this, but I think I'm talking myself into Jefferson over Lamb, and then obviously just take Amon-Ra first if you're in the mid first round and feel pretty good about it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for spending time with me. Up to 6 subs now. Feels pretty good, Love to see it. Thank you guys. Oh, I wanted to say this at the start, and I forgot. So if you somehow made it to the end, big ups for that, but I'll put it in the description, I guess. If you want to do a fantasy league if we could get 12 would be optimal. But if we could get 10 or 12 viewers to comment this video or any fantasy video that I'm going to post throughout the summer, I can make a Discord server and we can make a fantasy league, and I think it would be a ton of fun. I'm always looking for more leagues, so actually it's not true. I'm stepping back from a couple leagues. I had too many last year, and it was a little too much to follow. And when it gets all messed up between who you're playing, who you're rooting for one team, and who you're rooting against for another team, it takes a little bit of the fun out of it. But I think I've found the sweet spot now in leagues for this year. But I'll add another one because I just think it would be super cool. So yeah, comment down below if you want to do a fantasy league. I'll make a Discord server. We'll get it done. Hopefully we can get 10 or 12 people by, late August, early September. I think it'll be possible. But yeah, we'll see. Don't get a lot of comments, so maybe it's not possible. But I would like to think that it's possible. Anyways, I've been rambling for long enough at this point. Yeah, have a good one. Thanks again for watching. Have a good night.